everyone, my name's Lindsay, and I'm one of the tutors at Avoca College. Welcome to an exciting tutorial on how to model a medieval helmet using the box modeling technique without the use of reference images or importing other files into our scene. Now, in this tutorial, I won't be delving into too much detail of the tools I commonly use, so if you wish to know more about them, please watch my other tutorial on how to model a crossbow. In there, I go over in detail what the tools are and when I use them. However, I will try my best to give you an idea on how some of these tools I use work. Unlike other tutorials I've done, this one is a little bit more fast-paced, so it may be wise to check out my crossbow tutorial series first before you advance into this one. I will still try and explain as much as I can, so if I'm going too fast, please pause the video or rewind it, or if I'm going too slow, feel free to skip ahead. Before I begin, I just want to show you what exactly we will be modeling today. Now, I know I mentioned before that we won't be using any reference images or blueprints, but knowing what you will be modeling is always an advantage, even if it is just a rough idea. So it doesn't hurt to just have a look at some images on the internet of what you want to model. Who knows, you might even find something more interesting which may help your model out when it comes to modeling. Okay, to start off, I'm just going to drag this image across. Now, this image will be provided for you in the documentation, so don't worry if you can't find anything on the internet relating to this. The model is crossed between a Viking type helmet and a arena style as well. It's got the little plating in the front as well as like a kind of horns like as well. So I'll just move this to the side for now. If you have two monitors, that's a really good advantage. You can just put the image on one screen and have the 3ds Max open in another. So if not, don't worry about it. Just put it to the side for now and just minimize 3ds Max so you can see both images. So I'll just move this to the side here. Okay, now I'll just open a new scene. So I'll just go up to the max, reset. Okay, so this is reset my scene. Now, if you're only just opening Max up for the first time, go up to the Customize tab located in your toolbar. Scroll down till you see Unit Setup, and we'll just set these units up correctly. Now, by default, they're set to generic units, so change that to metric and change it to centimeters as well. So mine's already set up, but if yours isn't, just set it to those settings there, as well as going into System Unit Setup and changing the unit scale to 1 centimeters. So just select centimeters, and that's it for that. Okay, so I'll just go open this viewport for a sec, and we'll just start working our model. Now, glancing over to the image that we've kind of basing this helmet off, we can simply just get a fair idea that it's kind of spherical and roundish. So let's just create a new sphere in the Create tab, just drag it out, and I'll just change the segments to about 18. Just 18. Now, we'll reset this. I'll go to the Move tool, I'll reset it back to the center of the grid, and we'll just rotate it. I'll snap angle on, and I'll just rotate it along the y-axis 90 degrees. Yeah, about 90 degrees is fine there. Okay, so we'll go to left view, L for left, right click, convert it to editable poly, go into the polygon selection, and we'll just remove these polygons here that are obscuring the front of our helmet. So this is going to be our helmet's base shape. So we'll just remove this these front pieces here. So probably about 1/3 of the model, about that much there, and we'll just simply delete. Okay. Okay. So once that's done, I'll just go to the front view again, front. And I'll just go to the edge mode. I'll select all of the edges that intersect the middle, and I'll just create or connect a new edge along the center there. So 1, 0, 0 is fine for the settings. So since that's created our edge, I'll just turn off grid for a second so you can see. I'll just go into the polygon mode, and I'll highlight all of one side, and I'll just simply delete one side there. So now that we've got one half, we can add a symmetry modifier to it. So if you go up to the modifier tab, scroll down until you see a symmetry modifier, click on that, and just set the axis along the Z axis there. So that seems pretty right. Go to perspective view just to make sure everything looks pretty good. Okay, so that's alright there. Okay, so I'll just go to left view and go down, edit poly, just remove these other polygons as well, delete, and I'll just go to the vertice selection, and we can start moving our helmet in place. So we'll start with the bottom piece at the moment. This is going to act as our little curve out from our the back of the head. So if you just select the last two polygons, if you highlight them, as you can see, if I go P for perspective, I've got 3 polygons selected. You just can't see it because we're in the left view. I'll make sure symmetry is visible with the show end result when I'm in editable poly as well, so I'll just select that. Go left view again, and we'll just move these in place. So highlight these vertices here, move them out, move these ones here as well. I'll just rotate them a bit more, and I'll just start to get a nice fluid back piece there. So just go to perspective for a second. I'll select element, and I'll just remove all smoothing groups for the meantime. So I'll just scroll down, polygon smoothing, clear all, so that way we don't have to worry about strange shading. As well, I'm just going to change the realistic mode. So going up to the viewport here, realistic, I'll click on it, left click, and I'll just change it to shaded. That way we won't have any shadows until later on when we change it back. So just go to left view again, and I'll go to vertice selection, and I'll just move that middle vertice down, just so we got this nice smooth side going on there. So I'll just move these down, across. There we go. Okay, so I'll just work on the top piece here now. So just move these vertices up. Whoops. Just select them all down here. Move them along the Y and X, both sides. Now I'll just rotate them out just a little bit. There we go. And I'll do the same for this one as well. Just so we got this nice smooth side going on there. So, okay. Alright, now I'll just go into front view, and I'll just simply move these in a bit more, just so start to get the bit of the head shape going on there. Just even this out a bit more. Okay, and I'll move this down a bit as well. Oh, actually, no, that's fine there. Okay. Okay, so once that's done, we can go into perspective view, and we can start creating our horned area there. So what we want to do first, we just want to move vertices around so we get a nice round shape going on there. So if you go into vertice selection, and we'll go into the edit geometry, the little rollout, and select constraints, edge constraint there. So whenever I move a vertex now along any axis, it's going to follow along these edges here. So if I move it along the Y and Z axis, watch what happens to this vertex here. So I'll just move it along, and as you can see, it's snapping to the nearest edge along that those axes there. So it's really good if you want to keep the same surface of a model of geometry, but just shifting like vertices or edges around. So, but remember too, if you ever want to create new polygons or edges or whatnot, and you have edge selection ticked on, it's going to distort your model a bit. So just be aware when constraints are ticked on and off. So, okay, go to perspective view, rotate around, and we'll just probably make these 4 polygons here the starting area of our horns. So probably just at the back there, a little bit more. Actually, we could probably do it about halfway in between the back piece and the front part there. So that looks like a good solid area to work with. We can even select these 6 of the polygons instead of just 4, just to give it a bit more roundness to it once we manipulate them all. So I'll just go to the vertice selection, make sure edge constraints on, and I'll just move these vertices down a bit so we can start to get that nice smooth, nice round edge going around there. Just move these up. See how it's staying along those edges? There, looks good. Just move these up as well. Now, it's always a good idea if there's a lot of edges going into one vertice. It's always a good idea to relieve some of the tension on this vertice here. So what I mean by that is, if I go into polygon selection I select all of these polygons that are going into one vertex, and I'll just delete it. Now we can start to get, we can create a fluid topology going along around this side here. So what I mean, I'll just select, I'll go into edge mode, and I'll select these vertices. I'll go F3 to wireframe, select these edges, and I'll just simply shift, whoops, I'll undo that, and I'll make sure edge constraint is off this time. Otherwise it's just going to create edges along those edges. So I'll hold shift and create new polygons around here. Perspective, go into vertex, and I'll just target weld this new vertex to the nearest vertex there. And I'll do the same for this bottom part as well. Just shift, extrude out, vertex, target weld, and I'll weld this vertex there. Okay, so if I untick target weld, and now I'll just move these vertices along across a bit, just so they start to make a nice curve that joins along this this front piece here. So I'll do the same for these vertices here. Just go there, there, and I'll just simply bridge them together. So if I press F3, we've just got a little hole in our mesh, so we can just simply go into border and cap that. So now, instead of having one vertex that's holding all of these edges, we've just got a nice smooth topology going along from the top part of our helmet to the bottom part. And we can just move these polygons that we just created outwards a bit more. So that way we can just deform it and give it that nice smooth area there. Okay. So once that's done, we can come back to our helmet, our horn area here. We'll go into edit geometry edge constraint again. Just move these, adjust these vertices a bit more. Move them up. Move these vertices up. A bit more roundness to them. There you go. Just moving them along the X and Z, and just so we can get that nice roundness going along. Okay, so I'll go back out of edge constraint, I'll tick none, and I'll just select all of these, all of these polygons here. So once that's done, I'll just delete, go into border, highlight all of the edges that create that gap there, and we can just simply go into front view, and just holding shift along the X and Y, we can just create new polygons that extrude outwards towards that. And then once you've done that, we can just simply scale them in as well. Make sure you've got the first scale to uniform selected. There's 3 different types of scaling. There's scale to uniform, scale along one axis, or scale stretch and squash. So just make sure the first one's up here. I just simply click and hold to choose which one you want. So just the first one here is what you need there. So just scale them in uniformly, and I'll just move them in place. Move them in there. Just move them down a bit. Okay, and I'll just do the same. Scale them in, but holding shift this time to create new polygons. And then I'll just move these in as well. So we've got nice indent to where our horn can extrude out of. So, okay, that looks pretty good there. I'll go into border, and I'll just use the ring tool to select the rings that are outside. So if I press arrow up, it's going to ring around the next loop. So if I go to wireframe, if I ring down, it's going to ring around there. So you can see where it's selecting. So if I ring down, up, it's going to the next lot of rings outside that selection there. So I'll just select this outer ring here, and holding extrude along edges, I'll just scale that in, just so it's not too smooth around our model. Okay, I'll just go to F3, and yeah, it looks pretty good there. I'll just go out of constraints, scale it in a bit more, so started to get that nice sharpness going around there. And I'll do the same. I'll just scale this inward piece in here. Okay, so if we go to the top view, we can start extruding outwards our horns. So if you hold shift along the X and Y axis, hold shift and just start extruding out there, and we can just rotate the way we need to, and same deal till we get a nice curvature going around, and just move it across. Okay, so holding shift again, rotate, scale in, move it across. If you need to adjust these edges here, just go into vertex selection and just rotate them around, move them, and rotate. And if you want to Alt X to make it invisible, you can see where the backside of those vertices are as well. So just try and get them nice and even, get some good topology going along there. So just go back into border mode, and I'll just hold shift, extrude out, rotate, scale in. Just want it to curve out a bit more, about there. Shift out, rotate again, move it inwards, shift out, rotate, move it in, scale it down a bit. This is where the point of our horns are going to be. Rotate that around, scale it, move it out, scale it in, and one more time we'll just scale it out. Go into vertex selection, select all the vertices that make up that endpoint, go into the weld settings, and set the weld settings high enough just so all of those vertices weld together, and just OK. So commit. We can go to left view, we'll go into edge selection, I'll zoom in, and I'll select all of these edges that make this loop here. So I'll select one edge, go loop. That way we can edit the loop individually, or edit the loops, I should say, individually. So we'll move this loop down, so ring, up, up, all the way up, till you get to about, just Alt X again, up again, till you get to about this part here. So I'll just go to perspective view, just so you get to this, this loop here, where it starts to extrude out a bit further outwards. So I'll just front view, left view, move it down, then we can start to manipulate this horn here a bit further. So I'll just ring up, ring down, sorry, and move it down. We can even rotate them a bit more. Ring down, move it down, rotate, a bit more, ring down, move it down, rotate, just so we start to get a nice smooth horned area there. We can even move the horn further in if it's extruding out too much as well. So you can either do that by selecting the polygons or just going into vertex selection. Just go Alt X, just make sure I'm not highlighting those vertices behind as well. So left, go to polygon selection, Alt X, and I'll just grow, and I'll move them in. There we go. Move them up as well. Alright, so once the horn's starting to look pretty good, we can then move on to the front plate. So we'll go front view, move over to the side here, go to the create tab, create a new plane, just drag and drop out, just the same size as the helmet, and we'll just set the length segments to 1 and width segments to 1, and we'll just simply right click, convert to editable poly, go into edge mode. I'll select the top edge and bottom edge, go to the connect settings, and I'll just halve this plane here. So I'll just go OK, polygon, remove one side of it, because this front piece here is going to be attached to this model, this helmet here, so just delete that. Okay, so now we can start editing our front piece here. So if I just bring up the Photoshop image again, you can see it kind of has a little hinge on it, and then goes up and then across, and same with the bottom as well. It has a little hinge and then just goes down to a spike, comes back up, and then goes down to a larger spike. So just move that back out of the way. Now, keeping that into consideration, I'll just zoom in, highlight the top and bottom edges, go to connect, and I'll just create 3 connections. 3, Okay, go to the vertex selection, and I'll move these vertices down, or that vertice down there, and I'll move the bottom vertice up. So these can act as the starting point of our helmet. Okay, so once you got that hinge piece there, we can move the top part just a little bit lower, just so we got that nice curve going on at the top there. We can even move this down a bit at the top there, and we'll just go to the bottom part and just move this first vertice down, just so we can get that first spike going on, and the last vertice further down, just so we get that last spike as well. So we'll just move, once that's done, we'll just move this in place, and we can even add a symmetry modifier onto this one as well. Symmetry, and I'll just flip it. Okay, cool. So I'll go back down, show end result, and I'll just move this in line. Just use the z-axis, x-axis to center it. Go to perspective view, and I'll just move it in line in front of the helmet there. Alright, cool. So once that's done, we can go into the polygon selection. I'll just turn off symmetry for a second. I'm just going to select all the edges at the bottom and all the edges at the top that make up our faceplate, and I'm just going to add a few connections to it. So we'll just add about one for now. Okay. Select the vertice, select the polygons again. Make sure they're all selected, and I'll just inset them. And I'll make sure the inset's by a polygon as well. And I'll just make sure they're just inside each other there. About 0.8. Yeah, 0.8 looks good. Okay. Keeping these polygons selected, we'll just extrude inwards. So if I reset that, negative value, negative one centimeter, and okay. Okay, cool. So now that's done, we can go to the border, select the outside of this faceplate, and we'll just go to the scale tool, and we'll just, holding shift, we'll just scale it out. I'll move it down just so it's not obscuring any of the polygons. I'll even just scale it along the Z a bit further. Just move it down, and I'll move it back a bit as well. Scale it a bit further down, inwards, about there. Alright, so we'll go to the center of the faceplate, and we'll just simply delete that polygon that's created in the middle there. Okay. And then also having polygon selected, I'll just delete all the polygons that are inside those insets there. So if I highlight them and just delete them. Okay, so now that pretty much that faceplate's done, we can go to the edit poly, go into the modifier list, scroll down, and we can add a bend modifier to it. And what bend does is it simply bends our mesh in accordance to the bend axis. So if I change the angle, what happens to our mesh? It's bending at the Z axis. So if we change that axis to X, you can see now that it's starting to bend our front plate in accordance with that axis there. So probably bend it about 75 degrees. 75 sounds about right. I'll turn on symmetry, go back down to the editable poly, I'll turn on show and result, and I'll just go into element selection, and I'll just scale it out. Yeah, about there. Okay. Same deal if I go into edit vertices, just move them across to there. Okay. Okay, so now that we've got our faceplate, we can just scale it down if it's too big, and then just move it up. Move it out a bit more too. Okay. So now that our faceplate's done, we can just add extra detail around the side here. So if I go into edit poly, go into the edge mode, go turn off bend for a second, and I'll just highlight these edges here, and I'll just go connect. Let's connect one, should be right for now. Go into polygon, select these two polygons here that make up that end part, inset them, go by group, and we'll just inset it just about there. Looks good. We can also push it out as well. Okay, so also having those polygons selected, we can go to the bevel tool. So the bevel acts as both extrude and inset. So the top one is extruding, and the bottom one is insetting. So if I set the extrude to 0, that will give me an option to inset it. Same deal if I've set the inset to 0, and I can just then extrude it out. So if I just reset those to 0 again, I'll move it in, and then I'll just inset it inwards. So that way I've got a bit of indentation going on there. I'll apply it, and then I'll just extrude out again. So that way we've got a bit of a nook to use. Okay, so commit that, and we can go back and turn on bend, and I'll go, I'll get out of sub object mode, and I'll just move these in place. Move this in place there. We can also go back to the editable poly, and we can just scale this helmet inwards as well. And we just move this up a bit further. Okay. So once that's done, we can go to the left view, and we can just adjust the front part as well. So if I make this front piece invisible, so Alt X, go to left view, I'll also make this helmet invisible. Edit poly, vertex selection, and I'll just rotate around there just so I can select those vertices that make up that front part of the helmet there. And I'll just simply move them down. I'll even rotate them around a bit just so we don't lose any of that smoothness going on. And I'll just adjust these a bit further. Okay. Alright, so once that's done, I'll just go to perspective view. I'll just rotate around, or Alt X to get out of the invisibility. I'll just rotate a view around just so we see if we can find anything that's a bit strange going on. It's looking alright at the moment. We can add a bit more detail to the back here. So if I go into editable poly, and I just select these last edges here, and we're just holding shift, we can extrude out a bit further, create that little extra curvature at the end of there. And go into vertex selection, and we'll just move these in place just so we get some nice fluent polygons going on. Just weld this end vertice up with the top part here, and it's looking pretty good. Just move this vertice back a bit more. Same deal. If I go into left view, just move them across a bit. Same deal with this one. Just so we've got that nice round curvature happening there. And same deal, we can just move these vertices back down as well. So just about there, it looks pretty good. Okay, so now it's looking pretty good. We can just add a little bit more detail on the top of our helmet here. So if you want, just select this top vertice here and just move it up. And you can also move it across as well. So on the y-axis, just move it across. So we can start to create some spikes for our helmet as well. Same deal, every second vertice, just select it and just move it out. And same deal with the bottom one here. So ignore this vertice, select this one, and just move it out. Okay. And it is distorting our polygons a bit. So what we can do, if I just select this and zoom in on it, zoom out, what you can do is just add a few edge loops around the distortion of that polygon, so that way it won't look too untidy when it comes to the final renders. So just select them in vertex mode and just connect them together. And same deal with the rest of the spikes as well. So connect, select that vertex, this one and that one, connect. So there we go. That way we can move our the tip of our spikes around without distorting the polygons even further. So I'll just move this down a bit. pretty good there. Okay, we can also just add a bit more detail to that front part there as well. Just give it a bit more sharpness to that. Just stretch it up a bit. Okay. Once that's done, we can then add the smoothing groups to it. So if we go into polygon selection, if we select the tip of our horns, we can go into grow and grow all the way to the end of where the start of our horns are. So just keep growing to that part there, and we can just simply add a smoothing group of 1 to these horns. So that way it just smoothened those horns out. Okay, so with those horns still selected, so I'll just select those horns again, I can Control I to invert my selection of this model here. So Control I will invert your selection, and doing it again will put it back to the previous selection you had. So yeah, it's a really handy tool or shortcut to use if you want to select big areas or really fine areas where you can't really seem to select. So okay, so with those selected, I can just go down and apply a smoothing, clear that, and apply a smoothing group of 2. And I'll just select these horns, or sorry, these spikes here, and I'll set the smoothing group of 2 and 1. So they both have a smoothing group of 1 and 2. So they will blend to the helmet, but they'll also become their own smoothing as well. So okay, as you can see, we've got the nice smoothing happening on our helmet, on our horns, and our helmet there. I'll just fix these horns up here. I'll just make them a bit more wider. Just highlight the vertices, and I'll just make them a bit more wider. Move that up a bit. Same deal with the rest of these vertices here. Just select those, make them a bit more wider. Same deal with these vertices here. Actually, I'll go into edge mode and I'll just select these. Go to loop and just make them bigger. Or ring up. Bigger. Ring up again. Make that bigger. Yeah, about there looks pretty good. Alright, I might even, whoops, ring up a bit further and ring up a bit further out. Just move it in a bit as well. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. If I go out of that, you see we've got our smoothing pretty much sorted there. If I right click this object, go to object properties, and I go back face cull, it will turn off the underlay of all the polygons. So we don't really want this when it goes into the game. So in order to fix this, we can go into editable poly and select editable poly, go into the modifier list, and add a shell modifier to it. So it will create underlining geometry underneath our model that we have at the moment. So, which is really handy when you're creating helmets or objects that need to show both sides when rendering. So, okay, so first of all, let's change this outer amount to 0, because otherwise it's going to create new polygons on the front of our helmet here. So we don't want that. We want to create an inner amount instead. So let's go to the outer amount under here in the parameters, set it to 0, and we'll just scale the inner amount up. So we can make it, let's see what 1 looks like. 1 doesn't look too bad. What about 1.5? Yeah, 1.5 looks about right. Okay, so now that we've got our shell modifier on, we can just right click the shell on the modifier list, right click it and collapse to, and still collapse it down the stack. So a little warning dialog will appear, and it's just saying that when you collapse it down, the shell modifier will no longer be there, and it'll be an editable poly. Would you like to continue? Just go hold in yes for now. So alright, and as you can see, it also changed it to editable mesh as well. So we don't want this. So I'll just remove the symmetry and right click editable mesh and change it to editable poly. Okay, cool. So we can just simply add the symmetry modifier again and then just flip it. Okay, cool. The next thing we want to do is we want to fix the inside of these horns here. So what the shell does is it adds polygons on the inside of where it's hollow of our mesh. So in our horns, we really don't want them to be hollow. We want them to be like a solid piece of geometry. So if we go in here, we can see what's happening. It's creating like this weird tunnel, which we don't want. It's increased our poly count dramatically as well, so we don't want this. To change this, simply go to the editable poly, go into edge mode, and highlight all the edges that ring around this this open area here. So if you just select, you can either select them all or just select one and click loop. So it'll loop them all. So we can just go, once they're all selected, we can just split them. So we can separate the polygons on one side of that loop and separate the polygons on the other side of the loop, so they're no longer connected. So if we just go to the under edit edges and split. Okay, so now that we can select, go to the elements, and we can select the inner polygons that make up that horn and simply delete them. Okay, so now we've got our horn still, and those polygons have been deleted as well, so we no longer see them. Okay, alright, so now we want to just close this gap up. So if we just go to the border, and we can go to the scale tool, and we'll just scale it in. So scaling in the middle, scaling it in all the way just before they close up, and then we go to the vertex selection. I'll just make it invisible, so I'll make sure I don't select any vertices, and I'll just select those vertices that make up that open area, and I'll just simply weld them together using the weld settings. So I'll just jump that up to about just when they close each other up. So commit, and it will do the same for the other side as well. So if I just zoom in, it's done the same for the other side, so that's good. We also want to close these spiked areas up as well. We don't really want them to be hollow, so we'll just go in. I'll make it visible, and we'll just simply select the inmost polygons. So just make sure you haven't selected the outside ones, and just delete. And same goes for the other two spiked pieces as well. Holding Control to select multiple and delete. I'll go outside again, make sure I haven't deleted the outside ones. That's good, no I haven't. And do the same for the top one as well. So delete, make sure I haven't deleted anything, yep. And we can just move the vertices that make up that hole now to the center, just so it can weld together. And same deal, just move them in. And move them in. Yeah, it looks pretty good. We can even target weld these vertices here that aren't really doing much either. So we'll just target weld that to the center one. This vertex here to the center one here. This vertex here to the center one here. And we can just leave these vertices alone there as well. So okay, that looks pretty good. So if I go out of target weld again, if I select it to get out of that, and there we have it. We've got a shell modifier collapsed into an editable poly again. We've closed the gap that we created before, and it's now a fully working helmet. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to fix up this little hinge that makes up that front part of the plate there. So we want to make it look like as if it's welding together with this front plate here. So first thing we want to do is we'll remove the shell modifier from this. So if we just go remove, and we can also remove the symmetry modifier, and then collapse. So right click, collapse the bend modifier down to the editable poly. So we just go collapse to, and we'll just hold again. And now just make sure it's editable poly. If it's editable mesh, just convert it to editable poly again. And now we can go into polygon mode, and we can just simply select that little hinge part there. Make sure you don't select anything else outside of it, and just move it, rotate it into place. Just move it in, just like that. Just rotate it in a bit more. There we go. Looks pretty good there. Just rotate it more, and I'll push it out. Okay. One more thing that we want to do before we attach this front piece to the helmet there, we can just add a new shell modifier to this one now. So if we go scroll down and just add a shell, and we'll set it to 0.5. Looks pretty good. 0.5 in the innermost corners, so that way it's pretty solid. Once you do that, collapse the shell down again to an editable poly, hold yes, convert the editable mesh to an editable poly again, and we'll just remove these polygons on the inside of our front piece there. Just make sure you've got them all selected, and I'll just simply delete them. So that it's no polygons that are intersecting when we use our symmetry modifier. So okay, so if I go out of that, I'll select my helmet, and I will go to editable poly, and I'll just attach this gate piece here to the helmet. So if you click on attach and select it, and there we have it. We've got our front piece attached to our helmet there. So okay, so there's one last thing that I want to go through, and that's reset X form. Now we scaled our model up and down and side to side and squished it and squashed it and whatnot, rotated and however. It's always a good idea after you've pretty much tweaked your geometry. It's always a good idea to go into the utilities and reset the X form of your model, so that way it resets its transforms to the world alignment again. So it's all to 0, 0, 0. So if I just go to the utilities in that last tab, reset X form, and then reset selected. Now if I go back to the modifier list, you can see that the X form is on top of the symmetry modifier. We can just move this down below it, so symmetry works after everything is done. So it goes editable poly out of geometry, then it's resetting the X form of our geometry, and then it's applying a symmetry modifier to it. So okay, so that's pretty much it for the helmet design. If you have not seen my crossbow tutorial series yet, or got a bit lost through this video, I would highly recommend you go through the crossbow tutorial series first before advancing into this one. But apart from that, thank you for watching.